Special interests are planning and running millions of dollars of attack ads against Democratic candidates. Because last year, there was a Supreme Court decision called Citizens United. They're allowed to spend as much as they want without ever revealing who's paying for the ads. That's exactly what they're doing. Millions of dollars. And the groups are benign sounding. Americans for Prosperity. Who's against that? Committee for Truth in Politics. Or Americans for Apple Pie. Moms for Motherhood. I made those last two.
Well, new questions today about the White House and its handling of private information involving a wealthy political adversary. A report saying that the administration brought up Koch Industries during a reporter briefing on corporate taxes. They singled out this company. And now that company's lawyer wants to know if and how the White House got a hold of a private company's tax information, which is supposed to be confidential, between that company and the IRS. And they're wondering why they've been targeted and singled out to begin with. Fox News legal analyst Peter Johnson Jr. is here. So let me take the latter question first. This company is saying, why on earth are we being singled out? We are the only company by name they keep mentioning. At least three senior administration officials, including President Obama, have continued to mention Koch Industries, which has spent some money to oppose President Obama's policies.
Well, the Koch Industries and the Koch family has been involved with an organization called Americans for Prosperity, which is a libertarian, small government, anti-healthcare, Tea Party supporting organization that puts its money where its mouth is. And so they feel, at this point, that they shouldn't be subjected to the fearsome, ferocious power of the government talking about the kind of taxes that they pay as billionaires in this country.
You might not know their names, but brothers Charles and David Koch have quietly given more than $100 million to right-wing causes, underwriting a huge network of foundations, think tanks, and political groups. Jane Mayer reports on the Koch brothers in the current edition of The New Yorker in an article titled Covert Operations, the Billionaire Brothers Who Are Waging a War Against Obama. She says the Koch brothers have become the primary underwriters of hardline libertarian politics in America, and their views dovetail with their corporate interests. Charles, who is 74, and David, who is 70, own virtually all of Koch Industries, a conglomerate whose annual revenues are estimated to be $100 billion. The Kochs operate oil refineries in several states and control some 4,000 miles of pipelines. Koch Industries owns Brawny Paper Towels, Dixie Cups, Georgia Pacific Lumber, Stainmaster Carpet, and Lycra, and is ranked by Forbes as the second largest private company in the country after Cargill. Just to clarify, Koch is spelled K-O-C-H.
Well, it goes way back. And in fact, I think one of the things that really caught my interest about them was that their story is such a big piece of American political history. They've been working at this project really since before 1980, when David Koch became vice president for the Libertarian presidential ticket. It was a miserable failure. In 1980, they got 1% of the vote. And at that point, David Koch and his brother Charles Koch decided that if they wanted to have an impact on American politics, they were going to have to do something other than run for office. It was clear that their ideas did not do well in the marketplace of the ballot box. And so at that point, they kind of put their heads together with some other fellow travelers and decided that they were going to fund a complete infrastructure of organizations that were aimed at manufacturing political public opinion that mirrored their own. And so they set about doing this, and they've been doing it ever since, just absolutely pouring money into creating public opinion in all ways that you can do that, which is they've funded think tanks, they've funded publications, they fund academics, they give scholarships to students who will hold similar views as theirs. They fund a tremendous array of organizations, and they've actually founded a number of them themselves.
They founded the Cato Institute, the first libertarian think tank.
Absolutely. The Cato Institute has become a very powerful player in the area of shaping political opinion in the country. I mean, it's quoted all the time as a kind of a nonpartisan and impartial libertarian think tank, but it was founded by the Koch fortune and has been funded by it ever since. that they're not just your sort of ordinary Republican captains of industry. They are really self-described radicals, and Charles Koch specifically calls himself a radical and says he has a radical agenda when he talked to Brian Doherty in this book, Radicals for Capitalism. Their vision is really pretty far out.
An example of what's far out about it?
Well, you can see their thinking, I think, pretty clearly in the platform of the 1980 Libertarian ticket, which was when David Koch was the vice presidential candidate. And it called for eliminating Social Security, eliminating income taxes, eliminating corporate taxes, eliminating pretty much every federal agency other than those that enforce kind of basic rights. Particularly property rights. So their vision is it's extreme, from pretty much any direction. It's interesting. They were involved almost from the start of the Tea Party movement, and they put up websites that helped organize rallies. They helped pay for buses that got people to the rallies. They've provided various kinds of sort of political infrastructure that has made the movement possible, kind of fanned the insurrection in various ways. But the other thing that's interesting to me is that they've tried to channel the very legitimate and genuine anger that's out there in the country about economic problems and push it in towards their own agenda. It's not that they were the very creators of this anger. It's more that they've tried to take the anger and model it. And I've got a quote in the story from someone named Bruce Bartlett, who is a Republican and conservative historian and economist who actually worked for one of the Koch organizations. And he explains that for years they've been trying to turn their politics of kind of libertarianism into a mass movement. And the Tea Party is what provided the sort of the troops out on the street for them to do that. But they even provide scripts. They've handed out talking points for the Tea Party.
Do you think that most of the people who see themselves as members of the Tea Party don't know about the corporate money behind it, don't know, for instance, that the Koch brothers are supporting a lot of the Tea Party activities?
I just don't know.
By supporting, I mean funding, yeah.
It's hard to tell. I mean, when I was down in the Austin convention talking to Tea Party people, there were a lot of people who had conspiracy theories about money flowing into American politics. But, ironically, none of the people that I interviewed seemed to be focused on the Koch brothers. They were kind of obsessed with the possible role played by George Soros in particular. So I didn't find anyone who seemed focused on the Koch's role.
Although the Koch brothers are libertarians and they think government should be stripped to its most minimal role, you say they've been great beneficiaries of government money. Their companies have gotten about $100 million in government contracts since 2000.
That's right. So there's a certain amount of hypocrisy in this libertarian notion. And in fact, there have been some more kind of purist libertarian thinkers who have attacked the Kochs for exactly this, for kind of disguising their corporate self-interest as a kind of a lofty libertarian philosophy.
What impact do you think they've actually had on American politics?
Well, I think that you have to credit them with having been relatively successful in disrupting the Obama presidency, which is really what they were hoping to do. I mean, and they've talked pretty openly about it. They organized even before Obama was elected, and Charles Koch talked about how what he saw on the horizon was the greatest threat to freedom and prosperity since the 1930s. And as Obama was being inaugurated, they were organizing groups to attack the stimulus. And I think they've finally reached a kind of a point in 2010 where they've got actual people out on the streets who are fighting for their agenda. And so I think they've, after many, many years of funding all these different networks, that they're having a certain amount of success.
Resolution to admonish Congressman Wilson. So next week will be an important week for Congressman Wilson to decide, does he want to give an apology on the House floor? He's already apologized to the White House. Does he want to make that next step? Or does he want to face a potential resolution against him?
Are you telling when Lisa?
Before we cut out.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to try something that's good. Can I ask you guys something? Yeah, let me ask you guys something. I got a question. Everybody. I got a question.